Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants Google Hangout. My name is Joe Grabowski. I'll be your host for today. And for those who don't know, we're all about bringing science, adventure, and conservation to classrooms across North America and hopefully beyond. Today is a special lesson. It's a lesson in our Galapagos Hangout series. So I've done several based on my trip to the Galapagos with National Geographic and Lindblad Expeditions as a Grosvenor Teacher Fellow. Each year, a handful of teachers are selected to become fellows. We were able to spend 4 days in Washington to meet the other fellows from across North America. There were 30 educators selected this year. And from there, we were sent all over the world. Some of us went to the British Isles. Some of us went to the Arctic. Some are going to Antarctica in the next few months. And I was lucky enough to go to the Galapagos. And as someone who studied biology, there was nowhere in the world I wanted to go more. Today, we're joined by my mentor from the Endeavour. So the Endeavour was a ship that we were on, a 90-person expedition vessel in the Galapagos. And Banda is a naturalist on the Endeavour. And so I was able to meet her in Washington, and she kind of gave us a little bit of a rundown of what to expect and what the program would be like. And then we met her in the Galapagos, and I had probably one of the best 10 days of my life. The experience was phenomenal. Aura was amazing. She's so knowledgeable about all the flora and fauna you can find in the Galapagos. And so today she's going to share a little bit about being a naturalist and some of the amazing things she gets to see and photograph on a regular basis. So Aura, it is so great to have you joining us today.
Hi, Joe. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, I have been living in the Galapagos for the last 11 years, but my mother was born there. So I had a great chance to go there to visit my grandparents every summer vacation. And you can imagine that it was going with sea lions all the time, Darwin finches feeding on my hands. It was a really nice experience. Having worked as a naturalist for 11 years already, and I have prepared some for you, a PowerPoint presentation, and I can tell you a little bit more about why I became a naturalist, what I like to do, and as well, pictures of the Galapagos, which is what I like to do the most. So let me know, are you ready?
And I can vouch for these pictures. Each night on the ship, Aura would show us some pictures she took from the day, and she would give us some pointers for getting the most out of our cameras. And I think I learned more in those little sessions than I've learned in like 10 years of using my camera. So yeah, we're ready to see some pictures and to hear a little bit more about your story.
Okay, so I'm going to go to share screen, compartir. I have all the commands in Spanish, so, and let me go here. Can you see it now?
Looks good.
Okay, so first I wanted to show you where my country is. My country is Ecuador. It's called Ecuador because it's crossed by the equator line, so we're in the middle of the world. And if you look there, there's some little rocks there. Those are the Galapagos Islands. So they are 1,000 kilometers away from the shores of Ecuador, 600 miles away. And if you take a closer look, these are the Galapagos. Can you see there are like 4 red stars, one on Santa Cruz Island, one on San Cristobal Island, one on Floriana, and one on Isabela. Those are the only places where people is allowed to live. The rest of the islands and the rest of the land territory, it's a protected area, which means you cannot live there. You can visit some places, which we visit with Joe, and you can do science. You can go and study in the other places, but you cannot settle there. So those are, yeah, one of the largest national parks in Ecuador, and the marine reserve. So all the waters around the islands are protected as well. Now, I live on this island, on Santa Cruz, but my mother was born on Floriana. Today I'm not in Galapagos because one of the problems is that we don't have a very fast internet, so I am in Quito, but in mainland Ecuador, that's the capital. Now, this is the reason why I have a connection with the Galapagos. These are my grandparents, and I'm very happy to hear that some of you are celebrating Grandparents' Day. So this is my grandfather Eliezer and my grandmother Emma. They moved to the islands in the early 30s, where there was less than 1,000 people living on the islands. Why did they? Father wanted to live in a place with nature. He wanted to go back to bases and just do some agriculture, go fishing, and yeah, this is the island where, and they settled on Floriana because it was one of the few islands where you have altitude, you have highlands, so you have fresh water. The other islands don't have fresh water, and to live, so they settled there. They did some agriculture, they had some cattle, they were fishing, and they had 12 children. 12 children, so my mother has 11 brothers and sisters, and they were all born there without a hospital, without a doctor, because those days there was no connection with the mainland. So this is the first time I went to the Galapagos. I was 1 year old, and the story is that my mother said I didn't want to walk, and I decided to walk on that jetty for the first time. That's on Floriana Island. And almost every year we were going back to the Galapagos. But I grew up in Quito. Here's where I am now. Quito is the capital of Ecuador. It's a big city. And let me see, I have another picture of Quito. You can see it's a very long city. It's in the Andes. So we are in almost 3,000 meters high, 9,000 feet. And it's a very colonial city. It's a heritage of the world. So it has been recognized by the UNESCO as a very special place. And I grew up here. I went to school here. But it was a really nice balance to be here, have the very good schools, and have connections. I could take extra classes. I was learning Italian. I was learning some photography. But on my vacations, I went back to spend time with my parents. Yes, they did transport me on that donkey. And on the other side, they will balance with oranges. So the donkey will have the weight well balanced. And I kept on coming back. This is a place called Post Office, which has been there since 1792. It was used by the whalers. Here I am with my grandmother. The barrel is still there. We use it now as a place for tourists. And I just enjoy a lot animals. In Floriana, we didn't have a TV. We didn't have electricity. So we will use candles, and we had a generator to have light. And without TV coming from the city, my grandparents will just bring me animals so I could enjoy my vacations. This goat was my pet for 2 months while I was there. And I did know that I loved nature, I loved animals, but I didn't really at that point understand what Galapagos was. For example, today I know that goats are introduced species in the Galapagos, but they are actually pretty fun pets. They eat everything though. My relatives were in Galapagos, so of course that was another reason why, even if we were here, family was always Galapagos. This is my cousin, who is 1 year older than me, and we kind of grew together in different places. So this is a picture of us in Quito. This is a picture of us years later in the Galapagos. So after I finished high school, I went to Belgium. As I told you before, I like languages, so in Quito I studied Italian. Then I went to Belgium to study French. And I just, found animals there too. So animals different. I was always freezing. You can see here in Quito, I'm freezing. I'm always cold. In Galapagos, it's very warm. So it was a really fun year to explore a completely different place and to learn French. So what do I like? Well, for me to go to university, and I thought that's the question I need. What do I like to do? What do I want to see in my life? So I put a list of things, and I love nature. I love photography. I love taking pictures. I love languages. At that point, I was already fluent in French. I was okay in English, and I was fluent in Italian, and of course, I could speak Spanish. I love storytelling. My father always says, like, I got the perfect job because I'm being paid for talking. And I just love storytelling. I love pirates. I love the whole idea of their stories and the ocean and the ships. And of course, I love traveling. So I start thinking, how can I put all of that together so I could live doing this? So I went for advice, and my cousin that I show you the picture, her father is a captain on a ship that he owns, which is called the Pirate. You can see the pirate flag there, right? And I have seen that he basically liked what I like to do. So one of my advices would be look for a person that you admire and ask him for advice. In this case, my uncle Lenin told me, you know what, you should become a naturalist. And I thought, what's a naturalist? And he said, well, I was a naturalist when I was young. You can travel, you can use your languages, you can take pictures. So I decided I'm going to become a naturalist. Of a naturalist. It's basically the love of nature, which makes a naturalist. You have to be curious. You have to like to observe nature. And probably one of the most famous naturalists was Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin, he studied medicine and he didn't finish. Then he studied religion, and then basically like me, at that point he didn't know what to do, so he went traveling. He joined a ship for 5 years to explore the world, and he came to Galapagos. He spent 5 weeks here, and it's amazing how he observed things. That was basically what he was doing. He was observing, learning, trying to understand nature. I think that's what a naturalist is. And very important for me now as a naturalist, so I think that it's understanding and communicating to others. So I joined the course of the Galapagos National Park to become a naturalist. We were going to places like this. This is a mine of red gravel. So we had classes of geology, we had classes of botany, but it was just 3 months. And this is, I was so happy that I found this picture. This is the first picture after I finished my guiding course. I was very lucky. I was able to go with Lindblad Expeditions and National Geographic. I think they're running an emergency. There was one of the guides that got sick, so they needed somebody, and they took me. And you could see, I could almost not sleep. I was so worried that I didn't know many things. I didn't know much about biology. How could I explain about Darwin finches? How could I explain about geology? And the guiding course was very fast. But I realized that people love just hearing stories about my life, stories about my grandparents. So at the end, it ended up being a very nice week. And now I do understand much more about the Galapagos, and I am even better in sharing what they are. Once I start working as a guide, I started studying environmental management. So then I could get deeper in understanding more science. And then I decided, okay, I need to get in the water. So this is another big part of my job. I do a lot of snorkeling. Sometimes the water gets a little chilly. Not wonder why there are penguins in Galapagos. For being in the tropics, the water can get cold. And I have to tell you a secret. I never learned to swim when I was a child. I was scared of the water. So actually, I had to learn to swim on the first week working as a naturalist. And now I love it. It's just one of my favorite activities. I get to explore the islands while kayaking, hiking, snorkeling. So it's Galapagos is an amazing place. We go to the national park. So we live on a ship. I have been on the National Geographic Endeavour where Joe was for 7 years, and we sleep there, we eat there, and in the meantime, we travel from one island to the other, so we will have time to explore it. I have seen some amazing things, like an eruption on Fernandina, which is one of the farthest islands all the way to the west. So I have been very lucky to experience all of this. And some years after I became a naturalist, I decided, okay, I need to bring back the photography to my life. We had a program called the Photo Instructor Program, so I joined it, and I became a photo instructor. So as Joe was saying, I will share pictures of every day, what I have seen, what I have taken, and teach people how to get the best out of their cameras. Doesn't matter how big or small their cameras are, sometimes with their phones. Being a photo instructor took me to other places. So I have been a photo instructor in the Amazon in Peru as well. I have got to meet some celebrities there, like Harrison Ford from Star Wars. And yeah, and then I just kept on exploring other things. So then I became an undersea specialist. So I go snorkeling with the camera I have in this photo, and I just get footage to share with people. It's amazing what you can find in the Galapagos underwaters as well. So Galapagos, one of the things that people like the most is how close you can get to the animals. And this is basically because these animals arrive to these isolated islands by different ways. They evolve without big predators, so they are not afraid. They don't run away, they don't fly away. They just see us as another creature. And so it's amazing how close you can get to them. And just like Darwin did, you can just observe them, see, and wonder, why do iguanas sneeze salt water out of their nostrils? Why, yeah, why are they black? So you start asking yourself all these questions, or people start asking these questions to you, and you just start learning. There are giant tortoises in Galapagos. You can get very close to them. Galapagos has a lot of reptiles because reptiles are very strong animals to do the trip. We think many of the land animals came in vegetation rafts from mainland or from closer areas. And then once they arrive to the Galapagos, they adapt to those conditions and then became something completely different from their ancestors, becoming what we call endemic, which means unique. So you just find them in the Galapagos. You don't find them in any other place in the world. This is the top land predator that we have. It's called the Galapagos hawk. This juvenile was very curious, kept on coming close to us. It was trying to steal a shoe. And so yes, the fact you don't have big predators, so that's the main reason why you have this naive behavior of the animals. And I was able to enjoy my pirate obsession as well, because once a week we cross the equator line and we all wear pirate costumes. So we have a celebration. So I can always pretend to be a pirate. Now, why do I love my job? Because I enjoy doing what I do. And I think this is very important. You have to picture yourself in your job thinking, I'm going to do this every day. And if you enjoy it, it doesn't feel like a job. You're just having fun. I mean, I cannot imagine my job if I didn't like the water or if I didn't like the sand. You have to like what you do. And very important, I found a very strong motivation. And I think I can inspire other people to take care about our planet, about nature, using different things, sometimes interpretation, sometimes the photos, sometimes the videos. But I think people can get inspired by exploring. They can really understand. And if we understand, we can protect. And the third thing is because I have learned to observe. It has been really, really amazing to rediscover places while looking. This in the garden of my mother. I have seen Darwin finches all my life. But now I really like to observe them and understand, why are they so famous? What are they feeding on? How are they different one from the other? We have 15 different species coming from one ancestor. Each one of them feeds on different things when the times are tough. So it's just fascinating to see that. I came back to Quito and I started exploring that there's some amazing places close by. And this is in the cloud forest in Quito, a hummingbird. So actually, you can go to your back garden and seedlings. Nature is all around. I decided to travel a little bit farther then. With my photography, I decided things like, okay, I want to have pictures of all the great apes. So I traveled to Borneo to see orangutans. I traveled to Uganda to see gorillas. These are all my pictures. And every time I travel with the motivation of taking pictures, I just learn so much. It's so amazing to know the stories in other places. You have wonderful nature all around the world. In Africa, of course, one of my favorite animals were the elephants. It's as well very important how you can overcome fears. As a child, I was always super scared of snakes. And when I traveled to the Amazon in Peru, I was sure I was going to see boa constrictors. And I thought, how can I do this? I'm so afraid. But by reading about them, by understanding them, and then by taking pictures of them, I just got a boa around my neck one day. And I was like, well, now I'm not afraid anymore. I just needed to learn about them. I have been in farther places like South Georgia. Here I came this year. I was here and I took my mom with me on this trip, and we got to see penguins and elephant seals. So it's just amazing to travel. I think it really opens your mind more. Now about Galapagos, well, we have, as I mentioned before, a lot of endemic species like giant tortoises. To be honest with you, I think Galapagos sea lions are my favorite. There's nothing like swimming or snorkeling with a sea lion. They are so curious about you, especially the pups like this one. They come close to you, they bubble at your mask. It's, I think, one of the most rewarding things of my job, to snorkel with sea lions. You can get to see unique species like albatross, wave albatross. They just nest on one of the islands in the Galapagos. And well, understand their needs. Being the only island where they nest, they are considered endangered, and that they do have long migrations. They go south, so they should be protected as well in their migration. And yeah, it's by observing them from close, you get to learn so more. Of course, there are some birds that are very emblematic. Many people ask me about the blue-footed boobies. We get to see them all the time, and they do have blue feet, as you can see here. And they're beautiful. But these ones are native. How is a native different from an endemic? An endemic, it just happens in the Galapagos. A native you can find in other places. There's blue-footed boobies in mainland Ecuador, in Baja, in Peru. And you get to see and care about things. So now, for example, I think there's a party close by. Now I am starting a new project with Galapagos penguins. We have penguins in the Galapagos, and I am trying to first identify them by pictures. So see if I don't know if you can see very well, but they do have like little points in black in their chest. We believe that you can identify individuals by those. And I want to monitor them with my pictures for at least 1 year to see their changes, when they nesting, when you see the juveniles, so I can use my work as well to do some research. So yeah, that's what I do. That's my life. As I mentioned before, now I came to visit my dad. I'm in Quito for a couple of days. And if I can give you an advice now that you are starting with your studies, is just to do what you love to do, because then you're going to have a lot of fun. Thank you. So let me see now.
All right, you're back.
I'm back.
Aura, thank you so much for that presentation. It was great to see a little bit of where you grew up and then the path that it took you to become a naturalist. So thank you so much for opening up and sharing that with us today.
My pleasure. I see a pirate hat there.
Yeah,
no,
we have
pirate flag.
Like Mr. Wiseman's class. Looks like they're flying the pirate flags.
That's great.
Very cool. All right. Are you ready for some questions, Aura?
Yes, of course.
All right, let's meet our classroom. So I'm going to jump. Let's see. Let's visit. We have a group joining us from Paris, Ontario, Mrs. Beckett's. They're some students from grades 9 through 12, and they're here in Canada, close to me. So your microphone is on. There they are.
Miss, what animals did you see at the Galapagos Islands?
What animals do I see in the Galapagos Islands?
Yep.
Okay. Well, you have different groups. In reptiles, there's some unique species. So you have land iguanas, marine iguanas, the giant tortoises, sea turtles. You have lava lizards, and you do have snakes. In birds, there is a lot of seabirds. So blue-footed boobies, Nazca boobies, red-footed boobies, then the albatross. You do have brown pelicans that are in other places too. Of course, the Galapagos penguins, and in land birds, you have the hawks, the finches. There's a lot of insects too, but during the rainy season, you see them more, right? What is most amazing is that you get to see them very close because they are not afraid. So you do have many different groups of animals there.
Okay, go up there and ask a question.
Okay.
Say, hi, my name is Spencer.
With my name is Betsy off. I'll wave up to George.
And then what's your question?
My question is, let's say,
What can we do to protect the Galapagos?
how to August.
Hi.
Hi, what can we do to protect the Galapagos Islands?
What can you do to protect the Galapagos Islands? Okay, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. Well, one thing will be to learn more about them, because the more you learn, the more you can do. To visit the Galapagos, it's already a help as well, because the entrance that you pay, part of that money goes to the national park to run the programs. You can tell other people about the Galapagos and their importance, but as well, you can join groups. You can check for the Charles Darwin Station and join them. Probably you can come as a volunteer as well after some years. There's many different ways of helping. Spread the word about how special the place is. That will be one way. And protecting everything. I mean, your home, we're all connected, so it does influence the whole planet, and therefore it influences the Galapagos. Thank you for that question. It's a very good one.
All right, good question. We're going to jump to our pirate classroom, who's also celebrating Grandparents' Day. Mr. Wiseman's grade 4s in Frankton, Indiana. So let me turn your microphone on. All right, you should be good to go. Oh, you might have to turn it on your end. It didn't seem to work.
Have you ever seen a dangerous animal in person?
I cannot hear very well. Have I ever seen?
Have you ever seen a dangerous animal in person?
Have I ever seen a dangerous animal in person? I don't think there are dangerous animals, but you do need to know how to behave with animals. I have swum many times with sharks, with hammerhead sharks, with white-tip reef sharks. They are not dangerous, but they are predators. So when I swim with them, I'm very respectful about their distance. The same thing with the boa constrictor I was mentioning in the Amazon. You do have to know to respect their space. And even the elephants, I mean, they are so big that you have to be respectful. I don't think there's dangerous animals. I just think you have to know how to behave with them.
Just getting ready for recess.
Okay, great question. Do you guys have another one?
Have you ever found a sunken ship underwater?
Have I ever found
Have you ever found a sunken ship underwater?
a sinking ship underwater? No, I have never found one. But my uncle, the one with the pirate ship, he was in the Galapagos years ago, and he has found jars of probably the whalers that came in the 17 and 1800s, probably wine jars, and he collected them, but not a whole ship.
All right, let's grab one more from Indiana.
What is your favorite pirate flag?
What is my favorite pirate flag? From the ones that you have, I think the one on the right.
That's Blackbeard's.
Blackbeard?
Yes.
Oh, cool. I like Redbeard too. And actually, I love pirates so much that I'm getting married next year, and we're going to have a pirate wedding.
Awesome.
Very cool. All right, let's visit our next class. We have, let's see, Mrs. LaFave's class joining us from Renfrew, Ontario. They're a grade 6 classroom. Let me make sure your mic is on. There they are, they're waving.
What is the hardest thing about your job?
Oh, that's a good question. What is the hardest thing about my job? Well, I think it's being far away from home. I live on the ship, and sometimes I will be long times. Like when I started, I was probably 6 weeks ago, so a month and a half away. And yeah, I think it's that, being far away from home. Sometimes, I mean, it just the time goes and flies, but then you realize you haven't visited your grandmother so often, you haven't seen your cousins so often, you haven't been all the time there for your friends. So now after 11 years, I'm trying to spend less time on board, so no more than 2 weeks. But I will think that's the hardest part, that I have to be away for that long time. Very good question. Yes.
Do the blue-footed boobies only live at the islands?
Do the blue-footed boobies only live on the islands? No, you do have them in other places. Actually, there is a small island very close to Ecuador called Isla de la Plata, and you do have blue-footed boobies there. You have blue-footed boobies in Baja California, Mexico. You have blue-footed boobies in Peru. But I think in Galapagos, they are so famous because you really get to see them very close, because like the other animals, they are not afraid, but you do have them in other places.
You guys have another question? Go ahead.
What is the scariest thing about your job?
What is the scariest thing about my job? Well, one of the things is that I visit the islands with tourists, and we are far away. I mean, there's no hospital, there's no, when we are in the farther islands, there's no a nearby town. And many of the tourists that come are very old, and sometimes they will fall. And so we have to be ready for emergencies. And sometimes that's a little scary to think, okay, if somebody has a bad accident, how can we take him out of Galapagos? We have had evacuations. We have had helicopters coming and taking, we had a person that broke a hip in the last months, and we had to evacuate him on a helicopter. So now there are the ways to do it, but of course it's always a little, you have a little bit of adrenaline thinking, I want this person to be okay. So that's probably the scariest part.
All right, we have one more group joining us today. In Mapleton, Mrs. Maynard's grade 11 and 12 Spanish class. We'll see if they have a question or two.
Is this close enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I went to Basin there.
Do I go? Okay, why do blue-footed boobies have blue feet?
That's a very good question too. Well, there are some studies, it hasn't been proven yet, but it seems that the food that they have is very rich in a pigment, which actually you have, it's called carotene, and you have it for flamingos, for example. Flamingos turn pink because they feed on that pigment, and there's very few cases when that pigment ends up in blue color. But it seems that it's one of the reasons that, the reason that they feed on that. And there was a study in Mexico where they added this pigment to the diet. So they did it artificially, and they did manage to change the color. So they were brighter blue, and they were able to see how that affected in their selection of their mate. So the reason why they have the color is to get a better chance to breathe, but it seems that the color comes from a pigment. Very good question.
Someone go by the population I can go Brad too. Come on, let's go.
About how many people live in the Galapagos?
That's a good question. We think now we're close to 25,000 people living on Galapagos. In the island where my mother is from and where she lives now, we are not even in 150 people. But Santa Cruz has developed a lot, the island where I live, because of tourism. So now we have over 20,000 people living there. It is limited. You cannot just move to Galapagos. You have to either be born there, or your parents had to be born there, like me, or you had to get a job and nobody from Galapagos can apply. I mean, if you have a job that nobody else can do there, then you can come as a temporary resident, but it's very limited. But still the population is growing, so a little bit more than 25,000 people.
All right, and there's time for one more if you guys have another question.
We don't have any more questions.
That's okay. All right, I'm going to jump to our class in Paris, Ontario one more time because each group got a chance to ask 3, and we just gave you guys a chance for 2. So if you guys have one more, you can go ahead.
Anyone have a question?
Question. Oh. You want to come up
Oh,
and ask
you.
a question? Okay, come up and ask.
Hot. Time to miss, Patrick.
Hello, this is Patrick. And we want to know, we would like to know whether you have seen any endangered species in the Galapagos.
Okay, endangered species. Well, the Galapagos penguin, it's declared endangered because there's not many. We think just not even 2,000 individuals. The giant tortoises were in big danger. I got to see Lonesome George, which was the last tortoise from his species. That was probably like the most endangered species I have seen. Unfortunately, he died in 2012, but he was the last one of his kind. Thank you for that question.
All right, great questions. So Aurora, you mentioned you might have a video or 2 to show us. Maybe we can wrap up with a video.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to show you, let me go back again here. As I mentioned to you, one of my favorite things to do is to swim with sea lions. So let me go here. Oops, I don't know where it is. Microsoft, Google, where is it? I don't know.
Well, I can vouch for, while you're looking, I can vouch for that as well. My favorite part of snorkeling in the Galapagos was almost every dive. Some of the young ones would come in, they'd pop up in your face and blow bubbles, sneak up on you and do somersaults. That was definitely one of the highlights.
Oh yeah, that was, let me see if I can get this to work. Okay, so this is one of the videos I did. So I tried to do an intro. This is in Champion Island. These are black striped salimas, which are like sardines. This is what blue-footed boobies feed on, penguins feed on. You can see they have these huge schools. It's kind of long. You have some aggregations with damselfish, grunts. So you have this mixture with species from cold waters and warm waters. This is a parrotfish. They produce the sand. They feed on coral. And then there you can see it feeding on a barnacle. And then they excrete the salt. Oh, and here they are. Look at them. Aren't they cute? So they babble. It seems like they challenge you to see what how good you can be in swimming. And of course, they always win. So yeah, snorkeling and diving. Over the years, I learned to dive. It's really amazing. The thing with the Galapagos is that you have 3 main currents that are reaching on the islands. So you have a Humboldt current with cold water, Panama current with warm water. So that's why you have the fish from cold water and warm water. But then you have another current coming from the west, which is called Cromwell. And that brings cold water all year long. It upwells in certain points, and that's why we can have, for example, penguins. Let me go a little bit further from the fish here. Well, we have razor sergeant fish. These are from tropical waters, 3-banded butterfly. This is a hawkfish. Those bite. I think this is the only thing that has bit me under the water, but they don't hurt. And I want to get to the place of and this is a beautiful fish, king angel fish. So normally what I do is I'm snorkeling here and I hold my air and I wear weights so I can stay longer time under the water. to get the footage. This is another parrotfish. A trumpetfish. It's a little hard because every once in a while you have to run out for air. I have an area with, of course we have a lot of echinoderms, different colorful sea stars. You can see the names there, pyramid sea star. This one is one of people's favorite. It's called chocolate chip sea star. Panamic sea star. This is a kind of coral. It's a soft coral. It's called cup coral. You do have lobster. And we do fish lobster. Fishing is allowed, but just by the local fishermen. And they have a time. And here are the sea lions again. So most of the ones that come close to you, they are juveniles. They are 6 months old, 4 months old. And the best time, you can see in the back, there's more coming and joining. Yeah, when you see the adults, normally they don't get close. Sometimes they do. You have a colony, which means you have an alpha male and then several females on the pups. The alpha male tends to be very territorial. He's barking, he's patrolling, taking care of his colony. But for the babies, it's just a matter of having fun, learning. And of course, this social behavior teaches them a lot. So they interact a lot with each other. Sometimes they find a sea star and they will take it out. You can see the snorkels there. That's how close you can get. I mean, this is just in the surface. And they are really, really gracious. I mean, we have 2 species of sea lions. Oh, and these are sharks. I was telling you about sharks. This is a white tip reef shark. It's a small shark. It feeds on small prey. So I was trying to get a little closer, but they do swim very fast. So here, for example, I just stayed still and let it pass in front of the camera. So yeah, and these are stingrays. This is a marble stingray. They are related to the sharks, and you can get to see them too. So those are, yeah, some of the highlights you can have under the water. I don't know if I have another. In the warm season, you can be swimming in over 80 degrees Fahrenheit. In the cold season, sometimes in 60. So yeah, it changed a lot, and that's why the waters are so rich. All of this area is protected, so that's very important. And we recently declared a new area in the north untouchable. So now it's a sanctuary. This is another kind of ray, stingray, diamond stingray. So as you can see, you can get pretty close to them, but you always have to be respectful. I mean, they have stings. Oh, and this is a week when I got to see dolphins, and I didn't remember this. So to see them here, I had to be holding from a Zodiac with the camera when we were going behind them because they go very fast. So we have these small boats that are a little bit faster, and basically went in the water, hold the Zodiac and tell him, okay, move, start going, and I had the camera. It was amazing. One of my favorite weeks because you can hear them under the water. It was really, really cool.
Awesome. Well, Aura, you definitely have one of the best jobs on the planet, I think, by far. And it was an absolute treat to be able to spend time with you on the Endeavour in the Galapagos. And you know, I can't thank you enough for hanging out with us today and sharing your story.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening and being curious about my place. And Joe, it's just great to see you again. We had a lot of fun on the ship. It's very inspiring. And as I mentioned in my post before, I have just the governor teacher experience had really changed my life in seeing how important teachers are and how you are inspired students. And yeah, it's just amazing. So kids, you are very lucky to have your teachers.
All right. And to the teachers who are joining in, who will be watching later as well, the applications are open for the month of December for the Grosvenor Teacher Fellowship. It's an experience of a lifetime, so I highly suggest applying, and you might get to meet Aura as well in person.
That would be great.
All right, Aura, so to wrap up today, I'm going to turn on the microphones and give the classrooms a chance to say goodbye and thank you.
Okay, that's great.
All right, here we go. Microphone's coming on. right, everybody, thanks so much for a great hangout. Ora, always good to see you. And we're going to sign off for today.
Okay, take care, everybody.